This is a video about why we need to get woke on Syria. Yo guys, Ray Dodgers Politics here. I wanted to discuss with you today Syria and the conflict going on there. It's been raging on since 2013. The whole proxy wars in the Middle East have been raging as to well before that. And I think that it's important at this juncture to take a step back before we go launching in with airstrikes and missiles and bombs and shooting from the hip, as a lot of the war hawks in government are talking about. I mean, Trump's even suggested that he's gonna do a strike on Syria and Assad very recently, and I think that we should quite seriously take a step back and really look at the reasons as to why we are there, who is benefiting from the actions taking place in Syria, all the countries surrounding it, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, all the countries around that region, the Middle East. What is going on there? Why are we getting involved? Why is America wanting to get involved? Why is Russia involved? Who is backing who and why? And generally, what is going on? Because I don't think the media, as in the BBC, or if you're in America, Fox News or CNN, are doing a great job at informing people as to what's happening. To be honest, I think they're lying to you. So I'm here to help you make an informed decision, or at the very least, enlighten you as to what the real reason is for our actions in Syria and what we are doing there. Let's just get one thing straight before I carry on. It's important for people to know this because it's not nearly talked about enough anywhere. And you actually have to, anyone who is a truth seeker actually has to go out of their way to discover this. So the Middle East is sat on a hotbed of natural gas. There are oil fields spread across the whole of the region. So let's not pretend that this isn't about anything other than oil. Oil, oil, oil. Oil equals money. Who is benefiting from being involved in the Middle East? Because what is there? Natural resources, natural gas, oil for corporations equals money and expenditure, etc. So just remember that. It's all about oil, it's all about money, it's all about power and influence. So many people will know that the main global currency of the world is the US dollar, which immediately puts America in a massively beneficial position in that their currency is the top of the table in terms of currency and exchange rates. So with regard to that, in the 1970s, Nixon made a deal with Saudi Arabia, basically saying that I will only accept US dollars in exchange for oil resources from your country, and then as well as that we will offer you the Middle East military support as a way of sort of saying thank you for giving us your oil. And then that in effect set up the new currency of the petrodollar. So tying your currency to foreign oil reserves means that other countries who are also producers of oil then have to set up and tie their oil to that same currency. So make no mistake here, this is all about oil and resources and pipelines and who has the most influence, who has the most authority, who can benefit the most, who can use those resources in their own countries and literally just take, rape and pillage from other countries in order to, benefit and get rich in your own country, which is what the US is doing and it's what we're doing as well. We're just as guilty. So these two pipelines, one of which we're backing and we're the main backers of, and I've got a map. This pipeline is the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, which is US backed and UK Western backed. It goes from Qatar going all the way through Saudi Arabia up to Jordan, northwards through Syria, and then through up to Turkey. And Assad doesn't want this. He doesn't want this oil pipeline to go through his country because it's backed by America and Saudi Arabia, who are also an ally of ours, and because their oil is tied to US and American dollars, which is, of course, the main currency, and they don't want that to happen. And there's a second pipeline, which is in the works, going from Iran all the way through westwards to Iraq, and then that one's going through Syria as well, and then upwards and along to Europe. And so Russia is against that because it undermines their authority in the Middle East and the foothold that they have, because of course they export about 70% of their oil and their gas reserves to Europe. So the pipeline that we are supporting directly undermines Russia and their sort of stranglehold over their region of the Middle East, if you like. It's quite complicated, I know, but that's pretty much the main sort of reason as to why people are fighting. It's all about money, it's all about influence and power, and fighting over resources. And of course, we are our ally Saudi Arabia, because they use the dollar in order to trade oil to us. So that's why Russia doesn't like it. So Syria doesn't want this westernized oil pipeline that is backed by the US and backed by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, which have built their oil assets around the US dollar currency. He doesn't want that pipeline to go through his country, and he's defending Russia because Russia doesn't want it either, because it will take away their influence in the global energy market. As I said, Russia delivers about 70% of its natural gas to Europe. So this US-backed pipeline is directly undermining Russian influence. So of course Russia doesn't want it. This is all about money. It's all about money. It's all about oil. Who owns the assets? Who has the power? Who is benefiting the most? So of course, as soon as Assad says, no, I don't actually want this pipeline through my country because it's not gonna, benefit me in any way, the Western powers, America, say, all right, well, we'll set up an invasion then. We'll go into your country and try and topple you, and we'll try and oust you to get rid of you, and then we'll put someone in your place that actually agrees with our agenda, because you're not doing what we want you to do, basically. And that's what it is. And they don't tell you this. They don't tell you this. And this is all backed by Saudi Arabia, who is just up to their neck in oil money. Because oil is the currency of the world, based on this Saudi deal that the US dollar is in conjunction with petroleum, with oil. That's the main power. So when you see on the news that, oh wait, we have to go in and save these poor people from being gassed, oh what a terrible evil person Assad is for using chemical weapons against his own people. It's just they're just feeding you this false flag of, oh, that's the main reason. But why would Assad be using chemical weapons on his own people? He's been trying to get rid of ISIS, trying to get rid of the rebels who are backed by us. We are giving rebels that we are helping Saudi Arabia to arm, who are mostly like jihadists from Al-Qaeda, from ISIS, and various other rebel factions, who we make out as some sort of victim, and we feel sorry for these rebels because they're trying to take power back from an evil, brutal regime. And like, no one in this conflict is perfect. There's no like angels who are the only people who are the victims in this is the civilians, and the rebels are trying to hurt the civilians as well. So, there's no good guy or bad guy. I have to tell you this because it's the truth, and they don't tell you this on like mainstream media. That's also why America has just been so involved across the decades, toppling regime after regime after regime. We've seen it most recently in Iraq with Saddam Hussein, in Libya with Colonel Gaddafi. They did it in Cuba with putting a US puppet by the name of Batista to try and to suppress a revolution that was happening there. It's all about who has the power, people, and the US are the biggest perpetrators of this. That don't believe the hype that America are like the good guys, are the world police that are helping civilians out because they're being repressed by evil, terrible regimes. I mean, these regimes are terrible. I mean, Saddam Hussein was not a perfect person by any stretch, and Bashar al-Assad is not a perfect person by any stretch. They are both quite terrible dictators, but they're not stupid. And, they... In a lot of cases, they want to keep their oil for themselves because, it's their country. They're sitting on it. Why not use it? But no, America want to come in all guns blazing. This is our oil. It belongs to us. And if you don't give it to us, we're going to invade you on false pretenses and false flags. So, and as I said, we are arming. We are helping to arm terrorists. That's the truth. So, like, I just, it's terrible, isn't it, that this is happening? But it's all to do with the federal bank, big corporations, bankers, global powers. I would just like to quickly read you a segment from an article by Echo Watch, which details what's really going on and the ins and outs, etc. So, Saudi intelligence documents published by WikiLeaks show that by 2012, Turkey, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who are all our allies, were arming, training and funding radical jihadist Sunni fighters from Syria, Iraq and elsewhere to overthrow the Assad's Shia-allied regime. Qatar, which has the most to gain, invested $3 billion in building the insurgency and inviting the Pentagon to train insurgents at US bases in Qatar. US personnel also provided logistical support and intelligence to the rebels on the ground. The Times of London reported on September 14, 2012, that the CIA also armed jihadists with anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles and other weapons from Libyan armories that the agency smuggled by rat lines to Syria via Turkey. According to an April 2014 article, the CIA weapons rat lines were financed by Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The idea of fomenting a Sunni-Shia civil war to weaken the Syrian and Iranian regimes so as to maintain control of the region's petrochemical supplies was not a novel notion in the Pentagon's lexicon. A damning 2008 Pentagon-funded RAND report proposed a precise blueprint for what was about to happen. That report observes that control of the Persian Gulf, oil and gas deposits will remain for the US a strategic priority that will interact strongly with that of prosecuting the long war. So it's all been pre-planned from years and years ago that the US would take part in this insurgency in order to get rid of Assad so that they could then build and construct this pipeline that is financed by Saudi Arabia through US dollars. And we're getting none of this in the news. Where in the news did it ever mention talks about pipelines and oil and resources? I haven't heard anything about that in any news outlet. So what I would ask you to do is to just always question when you're watching the news or, you know, the newspaper or anything like that. Always question, always challenge, and just ask yourself, why are they presenting me this information in this way? What do they have to gain? Who is benefiting from doing this? Why is this happening? I mean, they do a good job of saying what is happening and describing strategic elements, but they don't really do a detailed job of discussing why it's going on and, you know, who is benefiting, who's allies with whom, and, you know, the main bigger picture of everything. And you have to dig for this yourself, because you're not going to find it anywhere else. And, you know, it just goes to show how the West is they for decades upon decades have been raping and pillaging other countries for their resources. I mean, Iran, for example, hasn't attacked any other country. But yet we still go in on the assumption of a false flag saying that, oh, they've been using chemical weapons against their own people. Assad at the moment is winning the war. On one level, he's ousted ISIS. He's thrown them out of their held territories, rebel-held territories, and he's managed to gain back control of most of his country. But apparently that's bad news according to us, because Assad is an evil bastard who needs to be taken out. And he's using chemical weapons. Why? Why would he be doing this? He's winning. What would be the point of using chemical weapons on children in your own country when you've almost got to the point where you've won and you've taken back control of your entire border? Why? Why? Just keep asking questions, people. Just keep asking questions. Because what happens when Assad wins? We don't get our pipeline. America doesn't get their pipeline. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all of them lose out because Assad has won, and Russia keeps on backing Syria, and Russia remains influential in the Middle East. So just question, people. Always question. Always challenge perspectives. And if you can, get information elsewhere. Because this is what is happening. And we need to keep challenging it, and we need to keep asking questions. And in many cases, just, you know, rejecting what we see on TV. So yeah, as I said, this is quite a complex issue, but many different factions are involved in every different aspect of this war. But it's important to get your head around what's going on so that at least you have a small understanding of the real realities of, you know, who's benefiting where and from what. So yeah, that's about as far as I can go on this. Thanks for watching, guys. Put your comments down at the bottom. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this issue. And as always, subscribe to my channel. Cheers, guys. Bye.